Welcome to the Metropolitan Club. My name is LaCoria Meadows, and I am a member of CMC's Board of Trustees, and I also serve as Director of Ohio State University Extension here in Franklin County. It is such a pleasure to see everyone today. So let's get to today's forum. I'm so excited to be here, so excited. Today's forum is the Joe and Carol Alutto Legacy Forum that's focused on higher education. Also sponsoring today are Steptoe and Johnson, as well as the Franklin County Engineers Office. Each of our supporters are represented here today by many friends and associates. So won't you please help me to thank them for their sponsorship. The Ohio State University has significant impact on the region as well as the state, and I would fair to say the world. From economic and workforce development to business partnerships and community engagement to driving breakthrough research solutions. Approaching its 150th anniversary, that's a round of applause for that, wonderful. Ohio State University continues to look ahead and move forward. The students, jobs, industry, and technology of today are definitely not the students, jobs, industry, and technology of tomorrow. What is the university doing now to define our future? So let's find out. So please join me in welcoming my president, the Ohio State University president, Michael V. Drake, as well as our wonderful host, Stacia, who is the journalist at WSYX and WTTE. Dr. Drake will be making opening remarks, and then Stacia, and would then join Stacia for conversation. Dr. Drake, the podium is yours.
Great to see everyone. OH? How nice. Brenda and I were traveling recently, just a few days ago. We were in another country across the ocean, and we were walking down the street in normal clothes on a Sunday afternoon, and someone said, "President Drake." And I said, "You know, true." I said, "Great Buckeyes everywhere. It's a wonderful thing." And we got to meet some Buckeye students who were actually traveling just after having graduated, so it's a great thing. Great to be here today to the Columbus Metropolitan Club, and I appreciate the opportunity to be here, and particularly to be a part of this forum. I met Joe and Carol Alutto actually the year before we arrived, and then got to know you both as we arrived here. You've been great friends and supporters. I'm going to be rude, and actually, can you stand up so we can give you a round of applause? The decades of service to our university and to our community, really appreciate it. That's pretty much all my comments. Just a couple things that I'd like to share that we're doing, things that are going on, things that we think are important. As a university, it's very important for us to prepare for the future, and we try to do that because the careers of our students are going to be, in terms of decades and not just a few years. We try to think of the future in 10, 20, 30 years from now and what we are doing to help create the people who are going to be the workforce and leaders for 10, 20, 30 years from now, create and support the industries that are going to be the industries of 20, 30, 40 years from now, and really to be the university of the future, even though we're doing this in the present time. We've had some wonderful things true about us in the last couple of years. This last year we saw new highs in the number of applications we received. About a week and a half ago we had a graduation ceremony. We gave out 12,200 degrees and certificates, the most in our history, a tremendous improvement for us. We've had last year our best year of donor support was last year. We had nearly $900 million in extramurally funded research last year. So many things at our university are at all-time highs, and these things are increasing, and we really do appreciate it. I would say, just in looking at the number of degrees and certificates from our ceremony, as I mentioned a little bit ago, we would have had something on the order of 14,500 graduates in the year 2010, 2011. This last year we were over 17,000, so our university is still the same size place, but with many more people graduating, and that's very important to us. Something else that's important to us is that we compared our 2013 spring class with our 2018 class. And we found that we had a 30% increase in graduates who were Pell eligible, so a great increase in graduates from the lower half of the income distribution. 20% increase in graduates overall, but a 30% increase in graduates who were Pell eligible. And that's quite an important thing for us to make sure that we are making the opportunities of the university available to people regardless of the circumstances from which they come. Anybody here ever heard of the Morrill Land-Grant Act of 1862? Great audience. So one thing that Morrill said, Senator Morrill, before this act was passed, was that it was important for the states to have quality universities to train people for the future, but he thought it was very, very important to have these universities serve the children of those who toiled, in his 19th century way of speaking, that these were the sons and daughters of the people who were working to make our communities, and not just the sons of the landed gentry or other small groups that had been the typical ones to be educated in higher education in the first part of the 19th century. It really was the concept of having our land-grant universities educate the sons and daughters of the children of those who toil, those who are doing the work to build our community. And we've thought about that for these 100 and nearly 150 years now, to make sure that we were a great place for the people of the region, for the people of the state, to be able to have their children come and be educated for the future. And so when we see that we've had an increase in our graduates who are Pell eligible, that's a very, very important part of what we would like to do. And when we think about preparing our students for the workforce, there was a study a bit ago that looked at 84 in-demand jobs in Ohio that require a bachelor's degree. And this last year's class accepted jobs in 82 of those 84, or about 98%. So really, we feel very good about being able to have a workforce that is in fact tuned to the needs of the society moving forward. It's very important. Another thing that we liked a lot, there was a study that was done by Times Higher Education from Great Britain, and they do rankings. Rankings and ratings of universities have pluses and minuses. Many of them are not particularly scientific, and I don't like those. Some of them get it right, and so I like those. So I think you have to choose your sources. But Times Higher Education, Great Britain, so they rank universities in a variety of ways. One of the things they looked at was American universities, about 3,000 baccalaureate degree granting institutions in the United States. They looked at American universities to see which ones had graduates that were the most job ready when they graduated, and they ranked the 50 top out of those 3,000 colleges and universities in the country for producing job ready graduates. And let me say that the top 9 were Ivies and a few others. So Ivies and Caltech and MIT maybe were 1 through 9. Number 10 was UC Berkeley, a great public university. Number 11 through 15 were the Ivies and the Caltechs and MITs that didn't fit 1 through 9, so the rest of them kind of sprinkled in. Number 16, interestingly, number 16 was Brigham Young University, and BYU gets a bit of an asterisk because the men at BYU at least routinely have spent 2 or sometimes 3 years doing a mission, so they're 25 rather than 23, and so they were in fact quite employment ready, and that's a good thing. We give them credit for that. Number 17 was the Ohio State University. Round of applause. And that's really tremendous. I mentioned that we're really pleased and proud of that. We were second among public universities in the country. And remember I said that we had 12,000 graduates at our spring ceremony just just a week and a half ago, about 17,000 graduates overall. So for us to be in this position of producing job-ready graduates at a clip of 17,000 a year, and have us compare with places that are producing more like 15, 17, 1,800 in the under, more like, the 17,000 includes graduate students, so we'll drop that down a bit to our undergraduate students, be more like 12, 13,000 a year, compared to maybe 1,500 undergraduate students a year at the small privates that I mentioned before. We are producing really employment and job-ready young men and women at a scale that's an Ohio State scale, and that's something that we're really pleased about. And we're pleased that the Times Higher Education all the way across the water did this survey to find out how well we were really doing in producing those outstanding graduates. Something else that we do, now that's a little closer to home, we did a study with Trip Umbrick to look at the economic impact of our university. And we found that we are responsible directly, indirectly for about 123,000 jobs in Central Ohio, about 48,000 employees at the Ohio State University, full or part-time, so a lot of employees at the university. And then the others would be in industries and businesses that are supported directly or require us for their success. So 123,000 jobs is our the number that we generate. We generate about $15.2 billion a year in economic impact. So $15.2 billion a year in economic impact. If we kind of imagine Columbus or imagine Central Ohio without the Ohio State University, you'd pull out 123,000 jobs, you'd pull out $15.2 billion a year of direct economic impact. So we really see the impact of the university on our state and region, and it's extraordinarily important, and we're really pleased because, again, we were founded as a land grant to be able to be in a community and to help that community and the quality of life in that community grow, and we really see that it's happening. We're proud of those things. We're not resting on our laurels. We know that we're approaching our 150th anniversary, and the things we've done in the past have prepared us for the future, but those things won't sustain us through the future. And so what's really important to us are the things that we're doing now going forward. And there are a couple I'd like to mention. One is that we are, as a part of collaboration broadly with the city and the region, we're looking at developing an innovation district on the West Campus. We have a couple of projects that are already in the early planning stages, a partnership with NG, who's worked with us on sustainability, and an ambulatory care center that we're planning will be among the first things we put there. But over the next several decades, there are 300 acres of land there that are available for this development, and we'd love it to be a place that is a magnet for the best ideas and the brightest ideas for the future to come forward. So scientists, entrepreneurs, and others will come and work there, and that we're looking forward to that very, very much. One of the things that our Energy Advancement and Innovation Center will help us do is to reduce our energy usage on campus by 25%. This was a part of our partnership with NG Axiom a couple of years ago, and we're well underway with that. The partnership was very helpful to us in other ways as well. It will help us to decrease our energy usage, and also because they paid the lease payment on the facilities that we leased to them up front, we had money that we can invest in our academic mission and in affordability, and we've had results of those things already quite prominent on campus, and very pleased to that, to be able to see that happening. We're also doing a lot of work. If any of you come to anybody here ever been to Ohio Stadium? Just curious if you could raise your hands. Anybody not ever been to Ohio Stadium? Okay, great. Well, we should have you come to Ohio Stadium. Had you come to Ohio Stadium the last year or so, you know we were doing a lot of work on Cannon Drive. And I heard a groan, but they were doing a lot of work on Cannon Drive. That's preparing for the future. But the work on Cannon Drive is really preparing, we are generating or creating or reclaiming 12 acres of land there, and we'll be able to have growth at our academic medical center on that area, on that land, and some other nearby land. It's very important for us to grow. I mentioned a ambulatory care facility in the West Campus that we're planning. Also, a new hospital tower will be there just adjacent to Cannon Drive. And one of the reasons that that's so important to us is that our hospitals, we have a series of hospitals, and our hospitals on a given day, today, tomorrow, often begin the day 100% full. We're very pleased with the quality of service that we provide. That's wonderful, but the demand outstrips our ability to be able to meet the needs of everyone that would like to have our services, that could benefit from our services. And so we really do need to expand our opportunities there, and the new hospital tower will help us to do that. I mentioned the things happening in the Innovation District and how pleased we are about that. There are other things that we're addressing that are issues that affect our state in a tragic way and on an everyday basis. And all of us know of the really terrible opioid crisis that is gripping the country. And we in this part of the Midwest, Ohio, West Virginia, Kentucky, other areas really are hit hardest. And so we were pleased that we, in a national competition, were awarded a $65.9 million federal grant to work on decreasing opioid deaths over the next 4 years, decreasing opioid deaths by 40% over the next 4 years. There were about 4,200 of these deaths last year, so a 40% decrease will be in the ballpark of 100 fewer per month going forward. And we are very well focused on doing this. We are working with and collaborating with Governor DeWine's Recovery Ohio program and others around the state to try to get our arms around this crisis as well as we can to really decrease the devastating impact that it has on families and communities on a daily basis. And that's a very, very important thing for us to be able to do to help sustain the quality of life in Ohio. And then one thing, I guess, a final thing I'd like to say is that we have students who come to learn from us. We appreciate that. We are more successful than ever in producing graduates. We're pleased about that. Our graduates are recognized around the world as being among the most employable. We're very thrilled about that. We're really thrilled at the economic impact that we have on the region that I shared with you. But we also spend a lot of time doing research on the big problems that affect the whole world. And one of them that's very important is climate change and the quality and sustainability of the planet broadly, and things that have been happening over many years to put us all at risk. And we were very honored this past winter to have one of our professors, one of our distinguished faculty colleagues, Ratan Lal, win a prize called the Japan Prize. How many people here know of the Japan Prize? So that's great. So maybe half-ish. Let me say for the other half and repeat for those who have heard it. But Japan has a thing that they started about 35 years ago called the Japan Prize. They select 2 scientists in the world, broad disciplines. They have a very distinguished panel that look for 2 scientists in the world who have made discoveries that improve the chance of the survival of the world. And so these are extraordinary contributions in medicine, in science. Dr. Lal's contribution was a contribution in sustainable agriculture. And his work basically found over his many decades. Dr. Lal got his master's and PhD degree from The Ohio State University, studied elsewhere, and then 35 years ago came back and joined our faculty and has done his work with us. What his work focused on was the amount of carbon that is sequestered in the soil. And I'll take one of your minutes for an answer. Pretend you asked me a question about this, so I'll answer your question. That's a tough question, but let me see if I can get it, if I can focus on it. Okay, tough question. But the thing about the planet Earth, and we have agriculture that produces food that we, and even for animals, the livestock is fed, we eat vegetables. This is all produced from the soil. So first thing about soil is it's an incredibly thin layer, maybe 3 meters is how far down you could go and still call this soil. And so given the size of the Earth, a 3-meter deep layer is an incredibly thin veneer on the whole planet, very, very thin. And if you think of the Earth broadly, 70% of it is water, so that's no soil there. About half of the land mass is in mountains and deserts and things where there's no plant life growing. So there's no farmland there. And so we're now down to really a fraction of the available surface of the Earth that is soil that can produce our food. We take the built environment and all of that reduces it even further. And we get down to a relatively small fraction of the surface of the Earth, extremely thin, relatively small fraction of the surface of the Earth that is necessary to sustain life for all of us and all living things. And the way we care for the soil is something that we tend to take for granted. We don't look at. And things like the way we do farming often destroys soil or renders it useless. Erosion destroys soil. And Dr. Lal has looked at ways to really try to replenish and protect soil, knowing that this is a resource that we have to continue to protect for our future. And one thing that he found was that the amount of carbon sequestered in that first 3 meters of soil is about 5 times all the carbon and all the plants on Earth and all the carbon in the atmosphere combined. So a huge repository of carbon is in the soil. A lot has been liberated from the soil by farming methods that plow down and dig soil up and take that sequestered carbon, expose it to the oxygen, forms carbon dioxide, and about 25% of the carbon dioxide, human-produced carbon dioxide in the air comes from the way we do farming. There are ways to do farming that actually capture carbon from the air, sequester it in the soil, and leave it there where it wants to be. And so Dr. Lal has worked on ways that this can be done by large agribusiness and also by individual farmers in their own fields and plots. So really great work that helps us think about ways that we can live a more sustainable future around the world. And so we're pleased to be in Japan with him, receiving the Japan Prize just a month ago. Let me finish and say that we're committed to continued collaboration with all of you in the room and with our colleagues around the country and around the world. Our founding mission was to improve the quality of people's lives and to allow them to contribute to the quality of life in their communities. We're really dedicated to that. And we're really focused on guiding our path forward today and tomorrow in the innovation economy to make sure that we here in Ohio and here in the United States, we can continue to be the leaders in the world that we have been over these last many, many decades. Pleased to have a chance to speak with all of you today. I look forward to questions. And let me just say at the end, go Bucks. Thank you. I'll sit?
Yes.
Right.
You took my first question. Look at that. Soil, surface of the earth, repository. It's all right there.
I can repeat it, though. But no, okay.
So again, my name is Stacia Naquin with WSYX and Fox 28. Very pleased to be here for this conversation.
Yes.
The topic, innovation economy and the Ohio State and the contributions there. And we talk about economy and we think dollars, but innovation is so much more than that. It's people, it's growth. So how do you begin to measure that type of growth? Because this is growth happening within people. How do you measure that?
If I think about our products at the university, we have students and we give out degrees, and that's of course central to who we are and what we do. But our main product is knowledge. So that's the knowledge that we transfer from one generation to another in our teaching and education, but also the knowledge that we create by our research, by thinking of old problems and trying to come up with new solutions to those problems. So research or thinking of new solutions to old problems or new solutions to emerging problems, that and innovation are really different ways of saying the same thing. It's trying to use our collective wisdom to make us better people and to have us interact with the world better in the future, and that's been a part of our founding mission, and it's something we do every day.
So much about the innovation economy has to do with STEM and those skills, science, technology, engineering, and math. How do you focus on those skills for your graduates while also focusing on the importance of arts and humanities and majors that focus more on diversity, because those are emerging areas of study as well?
We have STEM fields. I like STEAM as a way. I mean, I put an A in there. And you get STEAM education, because I think the arts are integral to everything that we do. And, you know, I used to say that this is something I used to say, so if it was useful, is that we were better at knowing how to make bombs than figuring out reasons to not use them, you know? And I think we need to think about the things that were called the soft sciences a lot to make sure that we know how we can interact better with each other as people. I was talking to my colleague from Genoa about art and some of the things that you do in your great city to preserve the art from centuries ago and how important that is to us, and the preservation of who we are, how we've interacted, what our history is, who we are as people. I think that's almost a sacred trust that we have at our universities, and it's critically important that we focus on the arts and humanities as we do the things in engineering and medicine and chemistry that we speak about so much. It's important and critical for us to know who we are and why we're here, why it's all important.
And a good balance of all of that.
I think so.
I know arts are important to you because you are a musician as well. What are you working on these days?
I'm working on a song called "Buddy, Can You Spare a Dime?" I don't know. That's not supposed to.
Can you hum a few bars for us?
You know, I just did. And, no, and I'm working on it because it has a great guitar part to it. So it's something I'm working on, and it's a fascinating song to listen to. It really is. It's a Depression era song, of course, and it kind of follows how our lives are. You know, there are ups and downs in life, and so it's interesting to listen to recordings of it made in the era in which it was written and popularized, and to hear the feeling that comes through. But I have a guitar teacher who I work with, and he suggested it as a good part to work on, so it's good.
Right, excellent.
And I want to thank you. You didn't say that people often say, put an adjective in front of musician, like terrific or whatever, and I'm totally a hobbyist. So you must have heard me play, so I understand what, but it's a great thing to work on.
Part of innovation is empowering people, and obviously you want to empower your students, your alumni. How do you go about that?
We want to empower them, we want to enable them, we want to inspire them to be the best people they can be, and to use what they've learned from us to make the world a better place, like the generations before have done for us. And that's a message that they get from the very beginning. In a couple of weeks, we'll be talking to orientation for parents and students. And we say we have 4 things that we care about with the new students are coming to us. We care about academic excellence that takes place in the classroom. We care about research excellence that takes place in laboratories, or creative excellence that takes place on our stages. We also care about character excellence, who you are and how who you are in the world, and then also leadership excellence, because we want you to take what you've learned from us to help be leaders in the community. And if we think we can do academic and research and character and leadership excellence and help develop the whole person, that should then enable and empower, and then we hope inspire that person to really make a contribution in the world that we see so often in our students.
Blaze a trail, leave a path.
Absolutely.
Innovation and empowerment is so important, and sometimes that means speaking up in the face of wrongdoing. We know there are lawsuits happening right now involving some serious allegations of sexual abuse involving a former doctor with Ohio State. I know you can't speak to that investigation because it is ongoing. How do you as a university foster an environment that encourages students to speak up and to feel safe to do that, while also making sure that the environment in general is safe?
Well, the first thing I'd say is the courage of the people who've come forward is something that we have great gratitude for their courage in coming forward. These are very difficult things to face and difficult things to share. We can't improve ourselves or make ourselves better unless we have the information. So we first want to say to all the survivors who've come forward and helped us with the investigation that we appreciate that very, very much. And we couldn't move forward without them, so we thank them for that and for their courage. I also want to say how totally unacceptable it is and for any of our students to have circumstances in which they're not cared for appropriately. When I mentioned we care about academic and research and character and leadership excellence, we do care for the whole person. We're committed to that, and these issues were from years ago, but it's unacceptable that our students are not cared for appropriately, and so we want to make sure that we do everything to demonstrate that. And then we have programs that we have developed over these last many years, and we try to, we have programs that are in place to help support our students. We care about those. We teach them, or we make them available to students at the beginning, but then we want to do our very best every day to practice what we suggest and to support our students. And for me, I've always felt that any student could come to me with anything that she wished, and that she would have a partner in trying to go forward and do the right thing. And I believe that my colleagues overwhelmingly model those behaviors, and we want to make sure that people can see that it's a safe place to be. And we've been pleased with the way things have worked many times, but it's an ongoing process for us.
The beginning of last year's football season, want to talk about that as well, marked in many ways by Urban Meyer's 3-game suspension. There are many conflicting reports about who wanted what and when, and the outcome of that. None of us were there for those meetings between you and the Board of Trustees and everything that was presented during that time. I'm sure everyone here has an opinion about how it was handled. What can you share with us about that time and what you learned from that situation?
Well, we had reason to go forward with an investigation. There were some confusing statements, and we got the best law firm, Mary Jo White, and a firm to do an investigation of the data that we had before us or available to us, then we looked over the data and came to what we believed was an equitable solution. I know that there were people who felt that the sanctions should have been more harsh. There were those who felt that the sanctions should have been not as harsh. We tried to get sanctions that we felt were appropriate for the circumstances and use other circumstances around the country to try to measure those things, and that came to where we were. And we're pleased that we went forward, had a great season, and that it worked out well. A difficult situation for all, but we took the data we had, made our best decision to move forward, and here we are.
So moving into the Ryan Day era, how are we looking this year?
We look great. Coach Day was with us for these last several years, and we knew of him as a rising star, and so we're excited to welcome him. And I know he was only one game really since he's been head coach, and he won that handily. So we don't.
I had a feeling he would.
The smart money was on him for that game, but let me say we're very impressed with him. One of the outstanding young coaches in the United States, and we're looking forward to an outstanding season.
Looking forward to that. Think we'll beat Michigan?
Absolutely, yes. Absolutely, yes. Absolutely.
I mean, absolutely,
yeah.
Of course. Innovation sounds so exciting, and there really is. There's evolution, there's vision, and so much of that, you get a front row seat, really, one of the most dynamic universities in the entire world. When you wake up in the morning, what are you most excited about with this university and what the students and the faculty and the alumni are accomplishing every day?
The most exciting part of the enterprise is the people who are involved in the enterprise. Those of you who get a chance to interact with our students over and over and over and over again are impressed with them. You say, "Oh my goodness gracious, this is what a wonderful young woman she is. What a wonderful young man he is." That's just how comforting it is to know that these are going to be the people that are going to be leading us forward. So day in, day out, we get a chance to interact with students and are impressed with their thoughtfulness and their humanity and their maturity. So I'm very, very excited about that generation of students who are moving forward. I will say also, I mentioned we were traveling a bit, and when I travel or when I'm at home, I get to work with academic colleagues who are on the cutting edge of some of the research that's being done, and that's always inspiring. It's amazing how there are people working right this minute on the cutting edge of that research, and that continues. We have an incredible faculty. And the third thing I'd say is that people who are in the administrative world that I am we work with faculty. I teach, so I get to work with students and see them for other reasons. But we also work really closely with our dedicated staff, and we have people who are here for 10, 20, 30, 40 years, their careers dedicated to making this university the best place it can be. And they love the university, they're proud of what we do. And so that community of Buckeyes is really a great group. So that's the part, one or another aspect of that is what I tend to think about all day, every day.
Innovation, you have to put yourself out there. It's about new ideas and sharing your thoughts, and not everyone's going to agree. Sometimes you will be rejected. Your ideas will be rejected. Can you give us an example of a time that you faced rejection for your ideas, how you handled that, and what you learned?
Well, not yet, but no.
No rejection.
Maybe do you know something? No, I do have one of my favorites. I joined the board of the NC2A a few years ago, and I was representing a conference. I left. I'm back with them now, but before I was here, I joined when I was representing another conference, and there were maybe 18 board members, and I was at my first meeting. It was in January, and they had some legislation that was coming up that the board was going to vote on. And there were different things, and I saw one part of it I thought wasn't so thoughtful. It could have been done better. And so I'm at my first meeting, but what the heck? So I said, gee, I think that whatever this piece of legislation was called is not done quite rightly or correctly. It needs to be rewritten, and I think that we should table it for now and do something a little bit later. And I gave a kind of an impassioned speech about it. My heart rate was up a bit and like that. And so then we went through the rest of the meeting, and we came time to vote, and my proposal came to the floor and for the votes, and it was 1 yes and 17 no. I thought, this is not working right for me. So that was tie with it was actually funny almost to me. It just didn't work right. So sometimes you don't phrase things in ways that they're going to work, but that was a particular first-time board meeting, a member deciding to make a contribution and having the board have to see otherwise. otherwise. I wouldn't tell the story except for this part, which is that after the board voted, the provisions all go out for ratification by the member institutions. And my proposal, in fact, soundly won when it went to be ratified by the member institutions. So I'd say it was 1-17, but the one got to win in the end. Or else, again, I wouldn't have remembered the story. But but I just, you know, sometimes you come out the way you say it and what you're thinking, whatever, it just doesn't ring a bell with your colleagues, and that was one. I don't know, pretty much, you know, I've been working in academics for a long time. And we, positions like mine, you have influence but not power so much. So you know, our professors are tenured, and so the way that you get things to work is by having ideas that people see as a better way to go forward. And so routinely, our decision making comes from sharing ideas, reaching consensus, and moving forward. And that we do that on an ongoing basis, and that's more like how it works.
Affordability is so important when it comes to higher education. We want students to be educated. We want them to seek out that college opportunity, university opportunity. It becomes more and more of a challenge to afford that. How do you balance the affordability of an education at The Ohio State University and also lead in innovation, because that takes money?
Yes. Well, we speak of affordability, access, and excellence as three things that we support all the time in everything we do. And that's excellence in everything we do, affordability for our students, and then broad access for the students who we'd like to attract. And we look at ways to balance them. What we have done is really focused on increasing our need-based aid, which helps with affordability. So I saw, and I think in your program, it said that we've increased need-based aid from 2015 till now by $150 million. We have a program, the Buckeye Opportunity Program, that says if you're a Pell eligible student, that you're, when we look at all of your grants and things that you come to school with, that we cover the gap between that and the cost of tuition. So your effective tuition for Pell students is zero. And we think that's appropriate. We're not the only university in the country to do that, but I think it's the right way to go to make it that students who come from families in the middle and lower half of the income distribution don't have tuition as a barrier to a college education. So we focus time and attention on that. We did that by cutting administrative costs so that we could shift money that we were spending in ways that maybe didn't help us advance us forward as much as we could. And we took that and we put it directly into the pockets of students and their families. We've helped 32,000 students with these grants to date and are continuing. So that's a very important thing for us to do. And then we try to be as efficient as we can in all of the aspects of our university's work so that we have resources to be able to invest in excellence, to be able to invest in affordability. Access, broadly, we reach out to people then around the state to make sure that they know that there are opportunities here and that we will welcome them.
That access is there, very important. Yes. One more question. So if you all have questions, we hope that you feel free to line up at our microphone, and we'll take those questions right over here in just a few minutes. Don't be shy. He's here to answer questions, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I like it.
So one final question here. The student at Ohio State today, the student at Ohio State tomorrow, what's the difference there? Do you see a difference in the students of tomorrow? Or do you think, I mean, we're on track already?
We are very, very pleased about the success, the quality of our students and our success. We have the most competitive classes that we've ever had, grades and test scores, but also the most diverse classes that we've ever had. So those two things are rising together. We are very desirable to students from Ohio and around Ohio, but also students across the country and around the world. We have over 50,000 applicants a year for our freshman class, so we're really seen as a destination institution. We're very pleased about that. I'd say the student of today compared to the student of a generation or two ago. The student of today knows earlier in her life how competitive collegiate admission is to the leading universities in the country, and so students tend to have started working harder sooner. But it's really, I don't know that it's a different person than it was a generation ago, but a student now knows they have to start working in high school to be ready to go to college rather than wait to college to be able to turn it on. And so while our students come quite prepared, about a third of our students come with something approaching 1 year of college credit already. So that's different than it was a generation ago. For us to be competitive in the future, for us to be the place that those students with all the choices that they have now this is not a great sentence, but we want students to choose us. We want to be a desirable a destination for our students. So we have to continually improve ourselves if we're going to be as attractive to students of tomorrow as we are to the students of today. We've had to do that over this last generation. We've worked hard to do that. One thing I will say I'm really proud of, we have a program that's not quite a year old where we provide professional development for our faculty. Already a couple years ago, we were ranked 8th among publics and in the top 20 of all universities for our commitment to undergraduate teaching, so we're pleased about that. But we want to get even better, and so we've developed a professional development program for our faculty, and just about 3,000 faculty have begun the first part of that professional development program. There's a second part, and more than 1,100 have completed the second part of that to make themselves better teachers. They're always competing on the research side. We want to also compete on being the best educators and teachers in the country, and this is because if we take the university of today and are doing the same thing tomorrow that we were doing yesterday, then we won't be the university of the future, and we want to continue to move ourselves forward. Very important to us.
Thank you so much.
Great.
We have a question right here. Ms. Carol Looper.
Yes, hi.
Hi. Financial debt, student loan debt is a crisis financially for many, many people in this country. You talked about the Pell Grants and bridging, helping some students. But is Ohio State doing anything else to help lower student debt so that when people graduate, they won't face what they face, 10, 12, 15, 20 years of debt before they can get out of it and get out into the world and earn money?
Yes, very important question, and thank you for it. So we've really worked on affordability as a way of making sure we were doing our work appropriately. And we have a series of programs that are meant to help our students be able to afford college at our university. So I mentioned the Buckeye Opportunity Program, which closes the gap between the grants that people come to our university with and the cost of tuition, so the tuition is neutralized. That program neutralized tuition for about 4,000 students this last year, 3,000 in Columbus and then 1,000 on our regional campuses, so we're very pleased about that. We also have a program called Land-Grant Scholarship Opportunity, or Land-Grant Opportunity Scholarship, and the land-grant scholarships are, we had a scholarship available, one per each county, that a few years ago was full tuition for one deserving student for each county. We found that we were losing students who would get a land-grant scholarship from the Ohio State University, but get another more generous scholarship from a university that they didn't prefer to attend, but felt that they had to because they couldn't afford to come to us. And so we raised the amount of grant on the land-grant scholarships to be a full cost of attendance. So that was, we were pleased about doing that. That worked so well, we decided to, I'd say, Vegematic it. If that was good, let's do it twice. And so we did now 2 per county. That's supposed to promote a chuckle, but okay. So now we have 2 land-grant scholarships per county, a full ride. In counties where 2 students don't qualify, we take that and move that scholarship grant over to another county where there may be more than 2 that qualify. So we give out about 175 of those a year. That's very important to us. In addition to the grants for Pell eligible students, roughly median income, $55,000, $60,000 is the rough level. We have a series of grants that we give to, grants not loans, that we give to students from family incomes between $60,000 and $120,000 a year. They're graduated, so because we know that when you're just into the beginning of the upper half of the income distribution, college is still not really affordable, and so we wanted to address that. So we have grants that are for other students as well. And as I said, our overall program has contributed totally now about $150 million to students and their families since 2015. It's about $45 million this year, more than was the case in 2015. The results, what we've seen is that in 2015, about 57% of our students graduated with debt. I don't know this last 2 weeks ago, but last year it was 52%. So it went from 57% with debt to 52% with debt. That's the right direction. 2016, the amount of debt per student was about $28,500. Last year it was about $27,000. So the amount of debt, although it's rising nationally, the amount of debt per student went down for us. So fewer students with debt and the amount of debt per student going down. And remember that we did this at the same time that we've increased the number of middle and lower income students that we have in the university. So we've increased the number of students with need, but decreased the number graduating with debt and decreased the amount of debt that they have to move in the direction that you suggest we should go, and we agree with you. Thank you. I wanted to one more story just to say that really something that was very nice. You know, I meet with groups of students, and I had a nice meeting with a group of students a couple of weeks ago, and they come with something they want us to do. And so they were mentioning what they'd like us to do, and I was saying, gee, that's great, I don't know if we can do that. And they come with energy sometimes, with the things they want us to do, so we appreciate that. But as they were leaving, actually, one of the students dropped back a little bit for the group and bent over to whisper that he is an engineering student, and that 2 years ago he was working 3 jobs to try to make ends meet, and then he was a beneficiary of our grant program, and 2 of the jobs were now gone, and he just wanted to say, had to whisper, you know, but he just whispered thank you, and it was great for me to know that we really are touching individual students and their individual families in ways that matter to them, and that's very important to us.
Next question.
President Drake, this is Megan Kilgore, City Auditor of Columbus. I think you know very well the office that I have the good fortune of having is revenue focused. And so this question's a bit self-serving perhaps, but when 80% of our revenues that go to the entire city of Columbus come from income tax, I'm obviously uniquely interested in wages, wage growth, jobs, and most importantly, how we're going to be centered in the next few years. Talk a little bit, if you can, about, you've identified the projects that are in your pipeline right now. What are your expectations for jobs here in the city? And very important, because I have, I'm looking and we see colleagues from Columbus City Schools, Columbus State. What is your vision for the collaborative approach of educating our students right now into those jobs in the next several years?
Great. So several things. I'd say first, I'm a great believer in the value of college and college education. Let me just say that for so many reasons. There's been a discussion about the value of college lately, and when we look at a whole variety of things, one's lifetime earnings, one's likelihood of being a volunteer or a leader in one's community, one's health, one's longevity, a college degree really helps the individual to be able to be a more active and productive participant in society in many ways. It's not necessary, but it helps. And so we really in Ohio would like to have a higher fraction of our citizens have some postgraduate, post-high school education, and as many as possible having a baccalaureate degree. And so we're working to try to increase those numbers. And we're seeing our graduation our rates go up as well. I mentioned our numbers, about 2,000 more graduates per year than would have been the case 7 or 8 years ago. That's tremendous. We've seen our 4-year graduation rate go from 5 years ago, it was around 58%. This most recent data I have are about 64.5%. So a real increase in the number of students who are coming to school, getting through, getting out, and getting a degree. When we talk about debt also, one great way to keep your debt low is to graduate, and to graduate quicker, and so more quickly. And so as we are having more students graduate on time, they're leaving with less debt, and that's a virtuous cycle for us. Columbus State, you mentioned, we have about 7,000 freshmen enter each year, but about 2,500 transfer students. About 1,000 of those are from Columbus State, our biggest partner. So we have a very, very active program with Columbus State, critical for us to be able to partner with them, and we appreciate that, and working with President Harrison on those programs is something that's very important to us. And then I mentioned our construction projects. Big project on Cannon Drive, our hospital tower will be the largest construction project that we've ever undertaken at our university. It's very important for our community, but it will also be a source during the construction, really, of thousands of jobs. We work carefully with the city on those programs, and work as close partners. From my first day here was a day when we went to the Near East Side, and we're announcing the PACT partnership to work with the city on helping to rehabilitate the Near East Side. And we have a wonderful series of collaborations with the city to make sure that we can work on growing Columbus, and all very important to us.
Next question.
President Drake, Tim Sword, President of Greater Columbus Sister Cities. One of the things I do to gain support or look for support for our organization is ask people to imagine if everyone in Franklin County had traveled once internationally with some sort of purpose.
Yes.
Would we as a community think differently, and presumably, would we make better decisions?
Yes.
And usually I get a positive response towards that. Recently, a Columbus Dispatch commentator wrote an article that said, kids travel the world, parents go to the poorhouse. Which got me thinking about, is he against what I'm trying to do? Or is he suggesting the community needs to get more involved to make sure that young people have that international experience? I know that your university provides a lot of those, but I also know that a lot of those programs are underutilized for students, and often it's because of financial reasons. And I just wondered if you could talk about the importance of international experience for an education, and also what do you think the role of the community is for supporting that?
Well, thank you. First, I think that how many people here have traveled abroad ever? So it's a thing that we do when we can. How many people traveled abroad before you finished your education? So it's sometime during schooling. So it's about half, I'd say, of the group got a chance to do that. And, you know, it's very important to be able to have a chance to travel and to learn from other people and places. I'm a great believer in that. A tiny story, I helped to start a program a few jobs ago that took medical, I was at a medical university, and we created a program to have our students go and work in Mexico for a month at a clinic. And we went and was quite involved, and we did lots of things. It was wonderful. I remember talking to a student when she got back, and she said, gosh, she got back one day and went into the clinic the next day, and she said that morning she was able to use things that she'd learned by being abroad that she didn't know before she went. She said it didn't even take until noon, and she was actually thinking and behaving differently than she would have had she not gone away. Just one little example of how important it can be. We have our STEP program, our second-year transformational experience program, that is an opportunity that comes with funding. That's an opportunity for students to do many things, including travel abroad. And thousands of students participate in STEP, and many of them go abroad. We think that that's terrific. We have a wonderful program that's sponsored by the Wolf family, the Wolf Scholars program, where dozens of students are sent abroad each summer. We had the luncheon celebrating Wolf Scholars, and got a chance to mention our friend John F. Wolf and his great legacy and memory. But we had the program where we were recognizing these scholars, and they sit at tables with us, and I was sitting next to a young person. I said, where are you going? And he was going to Bombay, and then there was somebody, I think next to me was going to like Botswana. And I said, so have you been to India before? And he said, you know, I've never been on an airplane before. And the woman who was going to Africa had never been on an airplane before. And so we really were going to, I said, boy, it's going to be you're going to get on the airplane, you know, and you're going to land and say we're not in Kansas anymore. You know, I know we're not in Kansas. I was quoting a movie, just to make sure that I hadn't, I saw somebody shaking their head. No, I was quoting Judy Garland. We are able to provide opportunities for young people to go and experience the broad world as you know it. It feels different when you're in a different part of the world, and you bring that back with you, and it helps us all. And we think to be a global university, we have to have those global contacts, so it's a very important thing for us.
And final question today.
Sure. President Drake, could you share your vision of what you see the educational experience like, the student journey being like over the next 5, 10, or even 20 years as that journey continues to change?
Thank you. Very good question. There are a couple of things that are changing a lot now that I think will be important, and that is that our students are using multimedia more routinely. We have an iPad project so that our incoming students are given an iPad to use for their 4 years. This is for the Columbus campus and our regional campuses. And I teach a course, as I mentioned before. My students have all their material on the iPad, so they don't buy a book or anything. They write their papers on it. They send their papers to me on my iPad, so there's no paper exchange. It's a great digital medium platform. But through the iPad, they're also connected to the world and information, and we think that's very useful. We think that the digital revolution is something that has not been utilized fully in education, and will become a normal part of what we're doing in education as we go forward. And we're happy to be the digital flagship campus with in our partnership with Apple. So we think that's going to be important. I think that desynchronous education what we would call maybe online education, but not sitting necessarily in the classroom together, will be a larger fraction of the educational experience for people. And I think then we'll get away from a course being a semester long, Monday, Wednesday, Friday from 1 to 2:30. There'll be different courses of different sizes that fit needs and opportunities. So I think we'll be a lot more tailored in how we present information. And I believe that innovation and thoughtfulness will continue on more. The last thing I'll say, I guess, is that we see this today, and we're making these changes now. Our students are much more engaged in their classroom work. So my, again, course as an example, it's a critical thinking course. It's a seminar. We don't give them information, ask them to memorize it, then give them a test and ask them to tell us what we knew when we started. We give them information and ask them to evaluate it and to think about it and to react to it and to give their slant on history. Not what happened, but what do you think about the way that people reacted, and would you do something differently? And we believe that and hope that the more engaged classroom, more active interpersonal connections within the class and the study time will allow people to learn more and to take things out into the practical world more. So we are happy to be a part of educational innovation and looking forward to continuing to move in that direction.
President Drake, we have some final thoughts today.
Great.
What an enlightening discussion. Thank you so much, President Drake. I hope that each of you found today's forum to be quite enjoyable. We encourage that you continue the conversation with coffee and cookies in the back of the room, and also learn more about CMC from friends at the CMC Welcome Table, which is also back in the room near the windows. So let's please thank our sponsors, the Joe and Carol Alutto Legacy Forum on Higher Education, Steptoe and Johnson, and last but not least, the Franklin County Engineer's Office. And let's also thank our speakers, President Michael V. Drake, and our own Stacia Naquin. And a special thanks to each of you for being here. We look forward to seeing you again next week. Have a great week.